All right. Hello, everyone. Today's lab is going to be a little pose-to-pose animation. We're going to be utilizing a character rig. His name is, or the file name is Max for Maya. Super powerful, super, you know, awesome rig. I love it. You can get so much movement, expression out of this rig, and it's a great, easy beginner rig to learn on. Now, with that being said, what we're going to do is we're going to do 5 different poses. We're going to run a play blast on it. On that play blast, if your computer's struggling for whatever reason to export or render out whatever a play blast, when I get to that later in the video, um, you can submit 5 screenshots of 5 different poses, expressions, etc. So, other than that, let's go ahead and dive right into it. So the file is in the Canvas shell. Download it. It's Max for Maya rig version, whatever it says, and then open up Maya, and we're going to import that file. So file, import, locate your Max for Maya version, blah 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 blah, and then click import. It says student version file. The file opened was created by a student version of Maya. Use this data educational institution for commercial purposes. A violation of your Maya license agreement. This message will appear whenever this file is opened. Okay, so great thing. We're using it for education. I think I ended up saving it out anyway at a later time to get that. So errors have occurred while reading this scene that may result in data loss. Please check the script editor for details. I'm going to run through this entire thing right now. I'm going to run through every single control just to verify every single thing is working on it, because I haven't opened it. This is the first time I'm opening it in Maya 2025. I don't see any reason why it shouldn't work, but let's go ahead and check the script editor and just see what it says just for fun. Go ahead, click OK, and then go to Windows, General Editors, and Script Editor. So in here, it's saying, warning, blah, 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 pose to pose, Max for Maya, blah, 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 blah. Let's make it a little bit bigger. And that's where the unrecognized node type is. So let's go ahead and make it a little bit bigger. So it says mental ray. I don't know if you remember from the ball rig that we had. That was also saved in a previous version of Maya, where mental ray was actually a thing. Autodesk later, I don't know if it was a licensing agreement or whatever it was, but they no longer support mental. Well, they probably support it, but you have to pay for it. So they switched it to Arnold, so that's basically your Arnold renderer nodes popping up, right? But anyway, then it says something about ambient occlusion. That's a type of typically that's going to be your type of texture map. So I think it's referring to a texture map and a MIB bent normal. I'm going to assume that's like envelope. Might be a normal map, but I don't think it is. And then mental ray, and the rest is mental ray. So it looks like it's trying to pull some information on the rendering that system that's no longer with Autodesk Maya. And then also possibly a texture map of some sort, and then maybe another texture, but I don't think so. And that we'll find out. Let's just go ahead and start playing around with it. But this just gives you an idea that you can see file read in 15.9 seconds. Please check the script editor for details. That's exactly what we did. So let's go ahead and close this. And now I've got my file up here, my Max for Maya rig, and I'm staring at his feet. So let's zoom out. And his feet are extremely close to each other. And this is the rig itself. So I can even turn on the grid. Oh, the grid is just so small that the grid is on. His feet are just on it. So that's what that is. So anyway, let's zoom out. Our character in comparison to the grid is absolutely massive. No big deal. It doesn't matter because we could scale this guy. Actually, I don't think they let you scale him. No. I would say that's probably the one downfall of this rig. So you'd have to, if you were animating a scene with him, you'd have to scale all of your objects in the scene to match his size. So a lot of rigs will have basically what's called a global control, which this one does not. And the global control allows you to move the entire rig in place, scale it, rotate it, whatever. However, this one does not. No big deal, because this is perfect to learn on. Now, I'm going to start at what is called generally the root control. So this is his root control. The global control, if it had one, would be at the bottom of his feet in most cases. Unless it's located somewhere else and I just don't know where to find it. But so this is his root control. And what his root control is, you notice I have the scale, but it's all grayed out because they're locked and you don't even see it in here. So they're locked and hidden from us, so we can't adjust the scale because it would mess with the rig. So this rig is designed to only allow you to use controls that won't mess up the rig, because certain things will kind of really mess it up. And you'll see you've got all this in here in the layers for whoever did the rigging. But either or, we're just going to leave it exactly how it is. Don't touch any of it. So you'll notice in here in his channel box, he's got translate and rotate, so we can move him, right, and we can rotate him. Okay. So with that being said, it's got an FK stretch, which is on. Basically, FK stands for forward kinematics, and stretch, I'm going to assume that's in control of. So it looks like I can only do it on a shoulder. But it allows you to stretch. If I turn it off, you probably wouldn't be able to. But I'm not going to mess with it because everything's working, seems to be working perfectly fine. And we don't need to worry about being able to stretch the arms out like a Bugs Bunny cartoon might be able to, or something like that. So getting back to this, I have his root control. IK stands for inverse kinematics and FK stands for forward kinematics. So inverse actually is his, to give you the best idea of how it works, when I move this down, his whole body doesn't move down. His feet stay planted because it's working inversely to this control. So it's working, so that's why you're getting bend in his knees and his feet are staying planted. Now if it was forward kinematics and I move this whole thing down, his feet would go with it, in essence. So let me go ahead and show you. So forward kinematics, basically, if I was moving my shoulder, right, and then it stays, I'll rotate it here, then my elbow, I'll rotate it straight, and then my wrist, I'll rotate here. So that's moving progressively forwardly. I have to move the shoulder, and then I would move my elbow, and then this. Whereas the other way around would be if I grabbed him by the wrist and moved him around, the elbow and everything would follow suit. So that would be inverse kinematics, where this is set for forward kinematics. So most cases, character rigs are going to be set up, and a lot of them will have an IK-FK switch on it, which this probably does. Arm left IK-FK, so let me show you forward kinematics real quick. So if I were to rotate the arm, right, and then I rotate the elbow, and then I rotate the wrist, okay, that's how that works. Now if I switch it, I have to go to his root control and do, this is going to be his left arm, should be anyway. Now you'll see his controls disappeared on his shoulder, elbow. He still looks like has a wrist control, but it's a different wrist control. And now when I move it, this is inverse kinematics. So you could switch it, but I strongly recommend just sticking with forward kinematics for the arms. That's very, very common practice for animators. There are times where inverse kinematics work best. Like if I were putting my hands on a desk to help me lift up, inverse kinematics would be great for that because the hands would stay planted where my body's moving up, just like these feet. So when I move this, his knees are bending. If it was forward, I would have to go through each one. So anyway, so most character rigs, especially when first learning, are going to be easiest to work with where the legs are inverse kinematics and the arms are FK forward kinematic. So anyway, just thought I would touch base on it. It's a very useful and important thing to know in animation, how things work. So anyway, he's got all these different controls here. Stay away from the smooth levels. Let's see if it'll show his... I bet this will... Yep. So you can actually smooth him up to 2 to give him a more defined look. I'm going to keep it at 1 because I want it to run as smooth as possible, especially if you have a slower machine or an older machine that's just, has a harder time calculating all this stuff in the background. Your best bet is probably to keep it at the lowest level. Now, before you would render something, you would animate the entire thing in low poly, and then when you were ready, when it came time to render, you could just boom, smooth them up, and now have all that extra geometry, and then just click the render button, and you'd be good to go. So it's pretty cool to know. Anyway, now, so I've showed you the root control. This root control can move down and around. You'll notice his knees are bending and his feet are staying planted, and I can rotate him here as well. So now I'm going to move down to the feet and work my way back up the body. So because his feet are kind of like inverse, they are inverse kinematics. So his foot control, I wish was a little bit bigger because I have to zoom in very closely to be able to grab it. But with his foot, I can move it around just like how I was grabbing the wrist before, and the knee follows suit and the hip kind of thing. So that's inverse kinematics. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go through, so I know it rotates. Oops. And I hit Control X accidentally, so I don't want to do that. That would cut my control out, and I need that. And then I can rotate and move his foot around. All right, so now I want to go over these controls, these extra controls that are in the channel box. And if you ever kind of get lost in the camera, because this can happen to you a little bit easier, especially because of the scale of this model, just tap F with whatever you got selected to zoom in on it or focus on that control. And now I can see it much easier. So my ball roll, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the control here. You'll see it's highlighted in light blue. And I'm going to middle mouse button click inside of my viewport. And then you'll notice these 2 little arrows pop up, one pointing left, one pointing right. And it allows me to slide it either way. Okay. So that's his ball roll. So if he was tiptoeing around, something like that. Toe heel roll. So this is going to roll at the toe or at the heel. So if he's like tapping his foot to the beat of a song or something, right? Boop, boop, boop. That might be very, very useful. Toe bend. So this is going to be able to bend his toes, okay? He doesn't really have toes, but you get the idea. Ball twist. So this is going to be the ball of his toe. You'll notice he's able to, if you had a character, putting out a cigarette, for instance, this might be useful. And then he has toe twist as well, which is going to twist from the toe. You might use this one as well for the same instance. Bank, maybe if you're dancing or something like that. Some type of sport, soccer, skateboarding. You're sliding your foot up to do a kickflip or a trick of some sort. And you can bank your foot left or right from the inside or the outside of your foot. The rest of these controls, leave them alone. I was playing around with one of them and something was really weird happening, but just stay away from them. Now let's go ahead and go to the next one. We're just going to double check to make sure all these controls work. So his foot's moving around, it rotates around, and we're going to go and check the ball roll and all these other controls. So ball roll works. Toe heel roll, toe bend, ball twist, toe twist, and bank. Okay. Now let's go ahead and move our way up. Oh, one last thing. Let's move his waist down. And now let me show you his knee control. So his knee control points the direction of which his knee is. Maybe some Elvis Presley, shaking knees kind of thing. I don't know. Anyway, now we're going to move back up and we're going to go to the hip control. If you're ever confused on what the control is or named, you can always look at the channel box and check the name. It's going to be this name of the saved file, hip control. So the hip control, you can move it around, which might be a little crazy, but you can also rotate his hips a lot. And no extra controls. We're going to keep these, keep the ones at the bottom alone. Just use the ones that I show you in the video. You can always experiment and explore and try things, but for the lab, I'm just going to stick to these controls. So rotate, and that is called the spine control. This is going to be the torso control, right? So we can rotate, cannot move or scale. We're going to move up, and now I'm going to move to the shoulder. So I already showed you how these work. It does have a couple extra things here. We're only going to stick with translate and rotate. So you can rotate his arm, rotate the elbow, rotate the wrist, and then, I hate it when I do that. Now I'm going to go to the finger. So the thumb control, actually, I don't think the thumb is actually considered a finger, either way. So the thumb, we're going to be able to, and it's because we have an extra bone in the thumb deep down here in the hand, where the fingers actually don't. So anyway, I forget what the thumb is actually, but I don't think the thumb is actually considered a finger, even though we call it it. Rotate Z. So we can only rotate it on one axis. You'll notice the other two axes are grayed out, where this one is yellow. And then you have a couple extra tools down here, or controls. I can bend just the tip of the finger, the middle of the finger, and then the base of the finger. And he also has spread to rotate open and closed. And we're going to leave the stretch and the SS amount alone. I'm going to do one finger. These are all, and then I'm going to do the rest of them all simultaneously. So I can rotate this. You'll notice the finger starts to bend right with it as I rotate it, which it kind of doesn't have to do. I can rotate it like this, right? Where I don't have to rotate, but it feels a little bit more natural, makes things a little bit easier in some cases. So there's some kind of script happening behind the scenes. But if you wanted to do it the other way, I'll start at the base and work my way up. You can bend it here under finger middle. You can bend it from the middle joint and then the tip joint. Right, so the fingertip joint, 0, 0, 0, and then it also has a spread. So you could do things like whatever. Anyway, now I'm going to do all the rest of these just to speed up the process, just to show you. Fingertips, they all work. Finger middle, they all work. Finger base, they all work. And then spread, they all work as well. And then we'll just rotate just to make sure. And this one doesn't allow you, I don't know why they're not grayed out, but it only allows you to rotate on Z. Okay. So going back up, we have this clavicle control. So it's right above these aren't your triceps, these are your, I forget what these are called. Trapezius, something like that. So it's right above that muscle, and then its pivot point is actually inside of the body, and that's where that joint, the clavicle joint, is. And the clavicle joint is basically, so it's like your upper pectoral, basically underneath your collarbone, but it's called the clavicle in this case. And what it does is, the best use I can think of is, especially for beginners, is when I'm rotating this, you're going to notice I'm going to get a lot of weird bending in the shoulder that feels, right here, that feels unnatural when it's bending. When I bend my arm up, I don't get it to come down, right? So the clavicle joint here is really to kind of make some adjustments to give it that extra clean deformation to make it look right. So that's kind of the main purpose of it. Moving back down this arm, I'm going to start at the clavicle. So it actually allows you to move it around as well if you needed to give it a more natural look. And then you can also rotate it. Again, shoulder works elbow. So another thing to keep in mind is that the elbow control on some character rigs, this one allows you to rotate it in any direction, which I actually really like. But some of them will only allow you to rotate at the elbow in, that 90 degree. So it could, depending on which way you have the rig set up, the rotate Y on this one. I've seen it be rotate Z, but either way, this is how it rotates. On some rigs, it'll only allow you to bend it the normal way, the realistic way, but this, it's animation, so it allows you to do whatever. The next thing is the wrist, okay? And then we have all the finger joints. I'm just going to run through them. Now I'm going to do all 4 of these because I know they're all the same controls on it. I will do the thumb separate. So fingertips, finger middle, finger base, spread, and we're going to leave stretch alone. I'm going to now select my thumb. Oh, and yeah, that works fine too. I'm going to select my thumb control. I guess I can turn wireframe on shaded off. Rotate it. It's cool because you can see how the mesh actually deforms. So you can rotate it in. You get all those extra bends when you do it. Fingertip, finger middle, and finger base. And then we also have spread, and that's it. So there we go. Now we're gonna go back. I already did this clavicle. We're gonna get into the face controls. So here's his neck control too. The cool thing about it is that his eyes and head are always pointing straight up. You also have this head control where you can rotate it to be which way he's looking indifferent. So like if he had his eyes locked on something over here, but you just want to do a little bit of weird neck movements or something, that's what that does. Let's see. And it does allow you to move his head, so he does have stretch on his head. Like a cartoon, he's trying to look over a fence or look over someone super tall or something. Anyway, all right. So that's the head control. And I guess I'll go to the eye controls. You can select the eye control. It does allow you to scale his eyes bigger or smaller, which is kind of neat. If he was bopped in the face in a boxing match, you can make him boop. Or if, I don't know, Jim Carrey's The Mask, I can't stop thinking about when I'm playing around with rigs and stuff, especially when you get into controls like this. So, because if you've ever seen the movie with Jim Carrey, it's older, but that mask that he wears does all types of crazy different expressions, right? So you can make his eyes bigger or smaller, and then also you can rotate him around. Now the cool thing is that even if I do this, now you can see that his eyes still looking in that same direction. So anyway, go ahead and bring that down, and then we'll check the other eye. Eye's working just fine. And one thing I love about this rig, not all of them will do this, but this one does. Really good rigs will have this. You'll notice his upper eyelid will actually move a little bit as he's moving, and it gives it a more realistic, natural look to it, especially when he's looking all the way up. Just otherwise you'd have to animate it by hand, and this just feels a lot more natural when you're doing it. So that's a really nice feature. It looks like it's even pulling a little bit on the lower eyelid as well too, so much more natural feel. Now I've got all of these controls sort of explained except for the face controls. The face controls, they're a little hard to see, and now I can't see the actual control itself. But these are going to work off of translate X and Y. We're not going to play around with anything else here. And nope, it won't let you. And basically, this one's the jaw. And I set it up like this so you can actually see the lettering a lot easier on the screen. So here's his jaw, moves around, right? This is another jaw control where it moves his jaw forward or backward, so overbite or underbite. Cheeks, so like a puffer fish, puffing out his cheeks, or like Whistling Dixie. So you have those. Narrow or wide is his, it looks like it's his lips or his cheeks. And you can set his cheeks to be very narrow or very wide. Okay. The tongue, I'm going to have to move his mouth open. So you also have tongue controls. So if you were doing lip sync, L is a really common letter, because if you were doing lip sync, L, your tongue actually goes to the top of your mouth, L, to make that noise. So that's a great place to use it, or just being silly, right? Doesn't allow you to go back out. All right. Anyway, bring this back to 0. I did tongue, narrow, wide, smile, frown. So you can make them smile, you can make them frown. And then you can also angle it to just one side of the face, or, you got a full range of things. Lips, we'll start with this bottom one. It moves his lips left or right. This is going to basically purse his lips or not. So if his lips are pursed, it's probably a little bit easier to see. So you can see his lips are kind of coming out, or pursing them, where you're saying like the letters M, B, or P for lip sync comes to mind. So M, B, P. So that's where you would want those lips inward, or if you brought it upward, whatever feels natural to you. Maybe it's not perfect. Maybe he's like trying to blow a kiss. I can't think of anything else. And then you would maybe narrow his lips kind of thing and have him pursed out. So anyway, now we are going to go to lips up. I'd imagine you know exactly what this does. So you can move it up or down, right? These always remind me of like the Ninja Turtles. The Ninja Turtles always have these like grrr faces, right? And then lips down, same thing, except it's going to be on the bottom. Then we have his teeth, or grr right, excuse me, where it does also the same thing. This reminds me of Popeye if he had his pipe in the side of his mouth. Popeye the Sailor Man. Anyway, that's what it reminds me of. And then we have our grr left, same thing. That just reminds me of Popeye. But anyway, now his eyebrows have 3 different controls, and each one's going to be the outer, one's going to be the inner, and one's going to be the outer, middle, and inner. I think I messed that up. So outer, inner, middle. Or outer, middle, inner, excuse me. So now I can move this eyebrow and get some crazy expressions out of it. It's probably just easier if I do it this way. Right, and then here, you can move his entire eyebrow down too. So if you wanted him to have a lower eyebrow and maybe look a little angry or evil, you can play around with it. So it looks like all the controls are working really well so far. The pupil, you can actually change the pupil size, which is super neat. Same thing on this side. And then blink controls, it has 2, one for the upper eyelid and one for the lower eyelid. And that is all the controls we need for this lab. So the way it works also, just so you know, this is not his right arm and this is not his left arm. It's opposite. So this is his left arm. FKL control for left. This one will be FKR control for right. Just so you know. And a lot of animators will have the colors, set up. Next for Maya. There we go. So if that ever happens to you, I think I accidentally pressed control and something on my screen. I don't know where the camera went. So I just went to my outliner, selected the object, tapped F on my keyboard, and now I'm right back to it. And I'm going to change this background, if it lets me, back to my standard one that this is my personal favorite one. All right, so I've got my character here, and now we're going to get into the posing section. So I'm going to talk as much as I can and lecture as much as I can while I'm doing this about, some common practices in animation, especially for character animation and character posing. So I call this a pose-to-pose lab because it is. We're just creating one pose and then having it go into another pose. But it's really a straightforward way of animating, so we're just going to have it go one pose, kind of like one shot into the next shot. We're not, but it's a really great practice to get into. So let me start by the first control I always grab when I'm doing any type of posing, animating, whatever. I'm always going straight to the root control. Because the root control, nobody I know in this world, even if they're standing in line at Starbucks waiting for a coffee, stands there with locked knees straight up. It's kind of weird. And another thing, while I'm talking about this particular pose he's in right now, this is called a T pose. So this T pose, when both your arms are straight out, is the most common way you'll see an animation rig or character rig set up, especially in the arms. It gives the best possible deformation in this shoulder region, and it has that little clavicle rig on this to fix it when you get some weird deformation. But in terms of all the way around, this is the best pose to have it in. Motion capture actors actually start in this pose, unless specified otherwise. But 99% of the time you're going to see motion capture actors in this T pose before they start to perform their scene, as well as this. It's in a T pose. This is called a T pose, and it's pretty much the most common pose there is. Any character rig you build or character model you see, even in any professional video game, film, whatever, starts in this pose. And even though you don't see it, they all start in this pose when it's brought into a 3D software such as Maya, Max, Blender, whatever. So anyway, I always start with the root control, and I always bring it down a little bit to give myself a little bit of leeway in the knees and the bend to give it a little bit more of a natural feel to it. Now, another thing about posing is I'm not going to keep his feet just straight ahead and all that. I'm going to move them around a little bit. I'm going to bring this one back. I might even give this one a little ball roll, just to maybe I twist it a little bit, and maybe I bring it out just a little bit more. The other thing I'm going to do, what I'd say professional animators do, or would tell you, is that if it has a control on an animation that you're working on, every single control should be used on pretty much every single key pose. Now, that might be a little bit different if we get into technicality in terms of like doing lip sync. You're not going to have it do MBP when you're trying to do O, unless it calls for it, but you get the idea. But pretty much every body control should be animated if it has it when doing this. So anyway, I'm going to bring his other foot over to give him a little bit more of a better stance. I'm even going to bring it up a little bit. I don't want it to be, not going to have him stand, weird like that unless, I don't know. Anyway, I bring his foot up a little bit, turn it out a little bit, and then bring it in just a hair. And then I'm going to give this one, I could give this also a ball roll, but I think it'd be a little weird. So I'm going to go with a toe. Yeah, I'll go with the toe heel roll. So it's almost like he's just stepping in or out of whatever he's doing. Now, while you're doing this lab, part of the requirements is it needs to convey some type of emotion, body language, etc. Body language can tell a lot about someone. Have you ever, just looked at someone even though they have a pretty straight face and just tell that their body language says that they're angry or happy or excited or whatever. We're going to start with the body and then we'll get into the face last. So I'm going to do like 2 poses with this character rig with you, but I want you to do 5. And then I'm also going to show you how to do a play blast at the end. If you have questions, obviously just shoot me a message, but let's get to it. So another thing, when you're posing out a character, you have to think in terms of weight shifting. So this might look normal to anyone, but what would really happen, which is really what going to sell your character, is to give it a little bit of weight over here, because a majority of his weight I feel like will be carried into this position. I'm also going to give it a little bit of a lean. Maybe I'll give him a little bit of a lean forward. So now it looks like his weight's shifting a little bit over to this side. And I'm not getting enough knee bend in here, so maybe I could either A, bring this down, or I could go to my ball roll as long as I've got enough room to work, and I could bring it up higher, but I think that looks a little silly, so I'm going to bring this root control down a little bit. And I could always move his foot around and whatever. Maybe it's too far out. Maybe I bring it in just a hair, bring it a little rotation, something like that. Give it that look to it. And then my knee control, I can also control which way his knee is bending. So let's go ahead and do that next. Right? So when your body's shifting to disperse weight, your hips do as well. Okay? And when we do that, we typically will counterbalance with our body in other ways. So what I'll do is I'll move up his body here and just give him a little bit of a pose here. I could bring this knee in, might look a little weird, but I'm starting to get this really nice clean bend. So when thinking of character posing, and that's if I kept my camera locked from this position, one of the things you can do actually is, if you want to look it up, I used to teach this in my 2D animation class. I haven't taught it in some time. Maybe they'll pick me back up for it at some point. But I used to show some really cool poses. My favorites to show are Tom and Jerry, because they actually have both the characters. You can Google it and find some images of it, and you can probably find some cool stuff on it. But they show you how to, the proper ways. There's a diagram out there somewhere. There's proper ways to strike a pose in animation, and then there's incorrect ways. So, and I love how the diagram actually shows, it'll show like, you know, Tom getting kind of punched in the stomach or something, right? So his body will be in like a C in terms of that pose. What I mean by that is like here. So, and then to play off of that, and theirs would be far more extreme. He would be like way more extreme in terms of that C shape, from his just his body language, just the from his 1 foot all the way up to the tip of his head would be like a C, right? And then Tom and then Jerry would have like a punching force, which would be just a bend like this, and they counteract so well. So it's kind of, I'm trying the best here to do it, but that's what it looks like, and you can find some cool diagrams on it, but to help you get some cool posing and things like that. But I'm just gonna, you know, kind of wing it for right now. I'll see if I can find it, and I'll post it in our Canvas shell. I'll see if I can pull it up. Okay, so I like to start, you know, at the root control, do the legs if possible first. If the camera's only focusing on the upper body too, by the way, I don't care about the legs at all. So if I was doing a pose that required, you know, maybe I'm doing exactly how I am here, I would still use the root control, but I would only use the root control and up. I wouldn't even worry about the feet at all. Just extra work that I wouldn't have to worry about because you'd never see it. Now, getting back to this, what do I want this guy to be doing? I want him to be happy, sad, excited. I'll have him I'll have him be like excited to see someone, or look waving someone down. In what kind of expression? Happy, angry? Is he mad that a guy jumped in his cab and drove away? I'll get to that point, but I'm gonna have him trying to wave or wave someone down or something like that. So what I'm gonna do is just sort of mess around with them, and I'm not going to spend too much time. What am I at? All right. I don't want to spend too much more time on this one. Don't want the video to be too long. And I just kind of lost sort of good control of my camera, so I just had these highlighted, tapped F to focus in on the hands. So now, and I can turn wireframe on, shaded off. Now what I'll do is I got all the fingers selected. I can bend them in. Maybe I just want... I've always been told I'm good at animating hands. I don't know. I kind of just... And hands can be difficult, but just to go ahead and sort of play around with these. And go through each one. Yeah, maybe add a little spread to these. Getting a little carried away. All right, and then I'll do the thumb. The thumb, I'll have it kind of curl in a little bit, not enough, spread. Let's bring it up a little bit, and let's bring the fingertip backwards a little bit, something like that. And the middle, and let's take this finger, maybe too much here. Okay, good enough. All right, so there's his arm, and then maybe I play around with his clavicle a little bit here. And now I'm gonna do a pose with his arm. And I'm gonna bring it down just because I don't want it to coincide with my facial rig. I wouldn't care, but I want it to be clear for you guys to see when I get into it. And then all right, that's good enough. So now let's go into his fingers here. Let's just move a little bit faster. The truth is, you really can't work. You can work faster, but at what price, right? At what expense are you? Are you gonna suffer from quality? No, I want this guy to actually not curl his hand. I want him to be sort of waving. And even though our fingers can't really bend that way, that I was just doing, it just makes me think of when you're pushing down with your finger, it does give it a little bend that way. So it's kind of neat that they give you that option to bend it back a little bit. This one looks weird. Oh, and let's run a... Perfect. I accidentally grabbed this one, but I'm good with it. He's got some monster hands. I'm good with that. And now, let's get into the neck. I move this one, I move this one. Now, one last thing that I've done here is, so I've created one pose, and this totally slipped my mind, and I guarantee it's going to happen to you. We need to set keyframes on every single one of these controls. So I'll have to go back and keyframe every single one of these, but I won't worry about it this second. I'll see if it's possible to just select all these and hit S, which I think it will be. And I've got his, so I'm gonna need to move his head somehow, just because I need to get, so that's kind of like a flaw of doing these things that way. So here we go. I'm just gonna turn his head. Now I can see all the controls on his body. I'll even give it a little bit less, and maybe I turn his head at the neck a little bit more, and then bring his head a little bit more this way. And typically when you're creating poses, you want to have a camera set up to see exactly what will be seen in the film, but that's really something more for film or character animation class or acting class. A director would show you what to do, but for the most part, we're gonna not worry about that right now. I just want you to get used to sort of playing around with this rig. And now I had to decide, do I want this guy to be angry or happy, or let's make him a little angry, like I don't know, we'll see. I'm gonna play around with it. This is the fun part of this. What's this one? That's his jaw, front or back. Hey, right? That's what I picture him saying. Hey. And I can blow his cheeks out. Tongue. Point it in a different direction just for fun. Kind of looks a little silly that way. Narrow, wide. That's kind of neat. Whoa. And lips. What's this one do? There we go. Hey, hey. Hey, Adrian. Lips. Show a little bit more of them teeth. Lips down. Maybe like a little Peter Griffin in that facial expression. Hey guys. I don't know. And then we're going to do the eyebrows. And I said he's going to be a little angry, right? Do something like that. And you don't want to do something called twinning. Twinning is when you have on both sides of the body, like let's just say both your arms, if you did everything exactly simultaneously at the same exact pace and rate and all that stuff, it's called twinning. It's a no-no. I mean, I'm sure there's cases where you do like the YMCA, right, kind of thing. Mostly just the Y because your arms would be going out at the same pace, but typically 99.9% of the time you're never going to want to do what's called twinning. So you're not going to want to have, you want it to be asymmetrical. So it just feels much more natural. And you can get a lot of expression out of this character here. That's a little too much. Where's lips down and up? It's hard to see. It's mostly this one I want to bring. All right, and then go left. Pupils, maybe I make them bigger. Not identical, just one's a little bit bigger than the other. Upper eyelid. Now he seems much more excited when his eyes are open and a little bit more sleepy when his eyes are closed. So I want to maybe bring it here and bring his bottom one up where he's like, you know, giving a little squint. I could do a squint, do one that's partially squinted, one that's not. And I think I touched every single control on here. That's good. So I've got my guy. Oh, Alt B, B, B. And, you know, then I would just have to decide which angle I'm going for. The thing I need to do, though, is because I haven't set any keyframes on this guy, the biggest thing that you're going to run into is that you're going to run into, what do you call it? Forgetting to set a keyframe. So the easiest thing to do here is, and let me make it so you can see my entire thing. I know I have to go like -50 at least here. 120, that's maybe fine. And frame 1. Okay, so I'll do like frame 1 and frame 10. So this is going to be my first frame. Even if you could start on the T pose if you wanted, just to whatever, but you need 5 different poses, and that does not include the T pose, the original pose that comes up. So you have 5 different new expressions and poses for your character. So make sure you do all that. So this is going to be my character here. I'd have to pick, I kind of like this angle a little bit better. But anyway, so now what I want to do, and you can see my frame right down here, frame 1, directly to the right of the little mouse I have on the screen. And what I'm going to try to do, I used to have another way to do this, but I think this might be the easiest. I'm just going to run a click and drag over all the controls and tap S on my keyboard. And now when I go over it, every single frame should be good. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go out to frame 10, and I might not do this one 100%, but let's just go ahead and start to do something. Oh, I didn't move his eyes either. Could have done something like that. Right, whatever. So this one I will. I'm just going to run through this real quick. And if I don't press S on my keyboard and I move this timeline, so let's just pretend you did this whole pose on frame 10 and forgot to. Now you move this, it undoes and goes back to that regular keyframe. So you have to remember to do those keyframes. So make sure you remember. I'm just gonna run through and put them into this. This reminds me of like Shakespeare. What is it? To do or not to do, something like that. And I'm just gonna do a quick little different pose here. I'm not gonna do the hands. I would if I was submitting this. I'm just doing this just to give you something different for this play blast. You'll notice all these things in red in your channel box, and that means it has a keyframe set on it. All right, so let's shift the weight over to this one. Move his knee out. Okay, and then let's do a different face. So what I want to do is get rid of that little grr face that he's got going on real quick. So I'm going to zero these out just to get rid of it because I don't remember exactly how I got there. Kind of fun, right? It's probably this one. This is definitely one of them. Just want to kind of get it back to somewhat normal. All right, so I'm gonna bring his mouth down a little bit, play with his tongue a little bit, Alt B. Keep that generic for now. I want the smile frown, so I'm gonna have him be a little bit happier. He's looking happier, but at the same time, it's like cynical, right? He's like, right? That's what it reminds me of, and that's his eyebrows. So if I change his eyebrows and his eyelids, make him look a little bit happier this time. And you can see that the eyes really do change his facial expression. So he's just gone from sort of happy to sad, from sort of angry to, that's kind of funny, like a weird smile. Now he's got a little bit of a weird, hey guys, like a fake smile almost, right? playing around with it. This, if I had the camera angled at a certain way, I might actually use this a lot more because I might want his lips to be focused on the screen or whatever. But I'm going to just go ahead and go with that. So make sure you remember to set your keyframe. I'm on frame 10. I'm going to highlight all these. I'm going to press S on my keyboard. I don't think I changed them. Whatever, it's fine. I didn't go through every single control again, but highlight all the controls, tap S, and now when I play this back, you can see we have animation. Pretty neat, right? So, anyway, from here, you're gonna do 3 more poses on top of, you know, this one. I want you to try to touch every control on every pose. Have fun with it. It's a lot of fun. And then the last thing we're gonna do, if you can remember to do this, what I'm gonna do, if you can't do it for some reason, that's happened to me before, just submit 5 screenshots of the different poses. But we're gonna right click on the play button down here in the bottom right corner, and we're gonna go to play blast. It's the first one, and then press that little square next to it. And then in here you can change it. QT stands for QuickTime. AVI I think is more of a Windows version. I don't care which one you use. You can use QuickTime or AVI. I just downloaded QuickTime, so I'm going to use QuickTime. Encoding PNG, which means I think you can actually, I don't know if you can on this. I know you can if you're rendering it, but on a Playblast I'm not positive. But you might be able to actually get this whole background out, but Playblasts don't typically work like that. So I'm not really concerned what type of format or whatever encoding it uses. Quality is at 70. I'm going to leave it at that just so you guys can see it. And then the scale is going to be 50% of what it normally is because it's going to be faster to do. Remove temporary files, sure. I'm going to click Save to File, and then I'm going to browse to where I want to put this file. And I'm going to put it in Lab 17, Pose to Pose. WIP for work in progress, 2 poses, and then test or sample, whatever. Okay, hit save, and now I'm going to just hit play blast. So view, show ornament, I'm just going to go with yes. Render off screen, you could do that if you wanted to, but I'm just going to hit play blast and see what happens. All right, and .mov, I want to use QuickTime Player, and select an app to open this .mov file, always QuickTime. Bang. Sure. So now I've got my play blast here. I'm going to hit play, and now you can see my play blast. Now mine starts on frame -11 because I shifted it over so you guys could see it on the screen. So, but now you have your little animation that you created. So anyway, you know, on top of these 2, do 5 total. Submit the play blast. If the play blast doesn't work, and just submit 5 screenshots of your character and 5 different emotions, poses, body language. So body language says so much. You know, if you do have any questions, just shoot me a message on Canvas inbox. I'll answer it as quickly as I possibly can. I want you to have a lot of fun. This is an exciting, fun lab. And other than that, enjoy the rest of your day. I hope you have fun with this lab. I hope you learned a lot, and look forward to seeing you in the next video I make. And like I always say, don't hesitate to reach out to me on Canvas inbox for any questions you have. All right, thanks, and see you next time.